Thank you, thank you.
Hey guys, here we are, one more RWI touchdown, Reimagining Wealth Initiative. Yeah, we're pretty much ending up February. There's so much happening. It's incredible how in 2 months so much things happen at the same time, and it's crazy. I think this is a typical phenomenon of collapsing societies or civilizations as we're living it out. And yeah, and we're beginning to hear TV's experience this last Wednesday that had a political encounter, not a political encounter, but an encounter about politics, right? In a peer-to-peer or commons perspective, and it was all in French, right? So if you don't speak French, you weren't able to be there or at least understand what's happening. So yeah, so we're going to start with you, TB. Feel free, my friend,
Mhm.
to get us started here.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, so the discussion was not necessarily about peer-to-peer, but since the discussion happens monthly at the Sensoric Lab, I always bring that perspective into our discussions. And yeah, so it's politics and democracy. But what was interesting was that we fill the room with people and we cover the entire space from somebody being present and active in politics of a local village, which is very remote, far away from Montreal. Some people doing more kind of like regional politics. Some people were involved in actions at the provincial level, and some people had ideas and plans and were working with groups at the federal level, right? Canadian national level. So we covered the whole space, and yeah. So first of all, it was nice to see that people are involved in doing something, and this is like you said, it's related to the feeling that we have in this changing world. People are people hear the calling of repossessing our governance and democracy. So they're trying to fix to fix stuff in their own way. And I feel this Cambrian explosion of the new governance systems that people propose, and and sometimes there's just patches or tweaks of our democracy. Sometimes there are very radical ideas, and I wonder how this is gonna turn out. Because you can only govern one society in one way. It's not many possible ways to do it. So you have to come to some sort of consensus. But but it's very interesting. So I want to bring this question here, which is related to my contribution to discussion. Um, so we covered the territory, right, from the village to the city to the province to to the whole Canadian federation or nation. Confederation. There's a debate: is it a federation of confederation? Well, that's another topic. Um, and what I brought there, I brought the transnational space that is opening. I said, there is now this peer-to-peer technology and these new type of organizations, and then this new identity that emerges in culture and everything. All these young people, engage with each other across the planet using this digital environments, digital technology, and peer-to-peer allows us to collaborate and set in motion economic processes. So this transnational space has been opened, and then it builds its own economy, and it thinks about its own governance, and it affects our lives locally, right? So in many ways, and so we need, when we think about politics and and democracy, we also need to think about it in this transnational space. And and what we didn't really speak about was the digital space. You know, there was that frontier when it opened. We didn't even think about it too much, like how to govern the internet. You know, there was the initial thinkers, they thought about um, the digital rights and all that, but this came later. And what happened, because there was a lag in understanding of population of what's going on here, this old digital realm, right? Well, it just got invaded by corporations, and it got dominated. And then we were late to kind of come back and regulate it and talk about governance, right, and politics of the digital space. But what the question I want to bring here, see how it resonates with you guys, is that as much as the digital was a new frontier, was a new space that was open, I kind of sense that the peer-to-peer opens a transnational space, okay? And and it's qualitatively different from the digital space. So why is it important is that, if you wake up in the morning and go throughout your day, you go from school to work to a shopping center, so you're shifting from one setup to another, one setting to another, one institutional setting to another, one set of relations to another. Everything has been architectured around you, right? And that dictates how you see yourself in that context, and how you interact with other people, your relations with other people, and all that. So we live in this matrix. But this peer-to-peer opens this space that has not been already carved, right? Has not been set up for you. And there is a lot of influences, a lot of forces that kind of compete against each other to dominate this new frontier, this new space. But the question is there such a thing as a transnational space as I see it? Can we legitimately speak about a transnational space that is not the digital space, but not the institutional space, right? Do you see it forming? That's
Yeah, I have a lot of things to say about that, Chibi. And I want to begin talking about what Michel Bowens calls translocal, right? And for him, translocal is the workings, the participatory workings of different peoples in different cities, not nation states properly, taking all sorts of issues in their daily life to talk about that. So this translocal space is about sharing cities. Yes, he talks about cosmolocal, but ultimately he began talking to him about cosmolocal, and then he was talking about translocal. It was a refinement of his first understanding of the phenomenon. And so he has been talking about this translocal reality, but in a sense of generating all sorts of coordination between folks in a region, in a city, and between cities. And having as a framework, having a peer-to-peer framework to share all sorts of findings, all sorts of nuances and novelties that happens in each city and between the cities. Okay, so this is something that he captured with his perspectives around peer-to-peer and commons. But my own take is a little bit more open, I think, and a little bit more profound or more essential, more layer zero than his. But it has a direct conversation with his framing. That it's. I think that the phenomenon that we're talking about is the global phenomenon that encapsulates your hyper locality where you are with your awakening of your awareness of your bioregion, your bioregionality in a planetary scale. So no matter where you are in the planet, if you develop this type of awareness with all sorts of new perspectives, you're being a global person. So you're not only attached to the national or to the city, but you're attached to nature. You're attached to the planet as a whole. So, and if you are open to mirror yourself in others' perspectives, so there you go, right? So in this global, very global, culturally speaking perspective and dynamics, we're not talking about participation of groups or parties or nothing. We're talking about the interaction between folks, between different bioregions, between different folks, different language, different cultures, different bioregions, and but it can be rendered in a planetary scale. So that's the type of exploration that I've been doing for years and relates to the complexity doing dynamics. So yeah, that's my 2 cents for us to open the works here around what you just put as a question for us, TB.
If we want to go in a feedback loop, I would like to react to what you said and then hear from others.
Yeah, that's good. Let's do this.
When I say transnational, the word trans is important for me here, because I'm trying to paint this concept, okay, and see if you see it also. So trans means beyond, okay? So like the digital frontier, there was no law for internet crimes. So that was beyond too, okay? The relationships were not codified. Crime was not defined, right? So it was a world beyond. It was like us going in outer space, okay? It's a new frontier. And when I say transnational, I think what you're talking about is more like a way to connect different dimensions, different scales. I don't know if Stefan will be happy with my use of the word scale here, but so it's like something that permeates through scales. And I guess what I see here is something that is beyond what is already institutionalized, right? It's a space that is physical and digital at the same time, you see. But it's definitely a new frontier. You see what I'm saying? It's beyond everything you said in terms of local, global, translocal. You see what I'm saying? So I kind of see a different dimension here. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, I want to hear from others to see if we can coordinate on
here. Hey, Lauren.
Hey. How are you?
We came hot. We came hot. We deep dive already in this discussion. This question discussion.
Quite a plunge, yeah?
Yes. because Chibi already had his coffee, so he was,
okay.
He was hot. He is hot. So, do you want to react, Lauren, or Stefan? Tim?
No.
I was going to chip in one thing. I'm always intrigued by this scale question, right? And it's the bit that I've been bringing to the table, or increasingly that sort of helped get some clarity in terms of how that can happen with active inference, funny enough, is what does it mean to think about different types of scales in terms of, like, when, we talk about the space that we see the perspective on. So we sort of talk about these different scales because that's what we think we can see, and we kind of point to those, right, as what we carved up. We've carved it up to say that this is the municipality, or this is the school, or this is the street, or whatever, right? But it's kind of, that's not what it's like to be in it. You don't, I don't walk down, I'm like, I'm in house now, I'm in street, street, oh, now I'm in municipality. You don't get that. The world doesn't, you just have your experience, right? But you have your experience as an agent with an identity, with agency. So you've also got this inside out experience of just being within. And in active inference, it's that argued that there's something along the line of a Markov blanket, which is what gives you a way to, what is it that you can act and perceive at those scales, right? So in some ways, the national scale, we can observe it and talk about it in newspapers, but only certain people are directly influencing stuff at that scale, right? As an agent, right? Potentially, or they say, and also a lot of things are aggregated anyway, just from experience at the smaller level. But so a bit like we have, cells in our bodies and groups, etc. So the idea of participation, but this idea of scale, because one of the agent-based thing seems to be a lot more inconvenient, and it's a lot harder to talk about. But one of the key reasons that active inference gets a lot of traction on this is the one benefit is that you can use the same principles in a fairly scale-friendly, scale-free way when you think about how the agent is engaging at different scales. When you look at the world and you assign scales, each of those scales kind of behaves in whatever way that the ontology for that works. The people that are in that scale, the ... which is kind of useful. You can get your organizational diagrams and you can get this sort of thing, but it's trapped by the fact that it's scale dependent and it's carved up in this kind of particular way. So I'm kind of really, that's one of the things that I'm really interested in, is where you can say, okay, we've found a scale that we find interesting from the outside. What was it like now without all of that labeling and all that codification, all that stuff that we're pointing to? What is it like to be an agent in that kind of context? And the way to find what kind of context that is literally to get someone to choose a real situation and then start to model that out, do modeling from within, participatory modeling effectively. So, I thought I'd put that in there. This idea of scale free is one of the big things that active inference sort of gives as an offering, because it's saying that the principle of free energy minimization is something you can, the same kind of principle, resolving uncertainty, trying to make sense of things, is something that the agents are going to try and do within that. And then the question is not whether they're doing that, they're all doing that. The question is at these different scales is what kind of environmental affordances do they have to do that? Are they playing with policy documents? Are they playing with how to order a can of Coke at the local shop? They're all trying to minimize free energy around how to make choices about how to go forward in their life. Anyway.
So I'm going to bounce off here too, because if we want to continue with this feedback loop, I think what you just mentioned here is kind of, if I understand correctly, the scale is codified, right? The scale is the code. It's a set of relations, and if we look at the agent from active inference perspective, that is the natural ability of humans to navigate scales and to open new frontiers. So because we are into our own experiences, we can recognize and be conscious that we are now experiencing life at some scale, right? I'm at the municipal level, I'm a citizen of a country, I'm an employee in a company, I'm a friend in a group, right? And then I can adjust my action accordingly. So there's that ability of the humans not to be tied to a scale, but to navigate scales and even to open new frontiers. So at some point, we have the digital environment that opens up, and then we codify that too, and we are aware that we're there. And this transnational space that I'm seeing that is opening, it's yet another frontier that we still need to codify. So when I talk about politics and democracy of politics, let's say, or power relations in that new frontier, it's like what they're trying to do is, okay, we have this new space, now we have to codify it and see how we can operate within it. And who has influence and who takes control of defining that new space, which is not a scale per se, but it's like a new adjacent space that just opened. Now Tim has a lot of information, so I wonder what he what he has to say.
Yeah, moving slow this morning, so maybe less than usual, but yeah, I the first thing that came to mind when you were talking was, without even any sort of particular conceptual content, there's this intuition over the past number of years, or anyone, I mean, that's been, especially, just from the fact that I'm even talking to folks in Brazil, it's just a drift. There's a drift to a more intricate kind of weaving of different person-to-person relationships across a broad globally networked span. I mean, it's just happening. So that's kind of only posed itself in my mind mostly as kind of just a vague, unstated, abstract question feeling sort of thing. And you're sort of giving it a name, I think. And Vinicius is saying that people like Michelle Bowens and such have thought about it really deeply and all this stuff, right? But I've just sort of wondered about it because it just seems like it's inevitable that will be happening, and that's just my intuition is it kind of creates this increasing unacceptability of sort of certain kind of global phenomenon that we're locked in by certain structures and stuff. So it's, yeah, it opens all these questions, and that scale thing that Stephen was talking about, brilliant. That was really well said, Stephen. That was a nice summary, right, of the stuff, and zooming in on the key points there for sure. And it's like that. Yeah. Anyway, that was well said. And I guess what I wanted to link there was that sort of that sort of feeling the way forward into that transnational whatever, stuff that you're talking about there. It's kind of like, and people use this mycelial network metaphor, right? Because it's this sort of, it seems like these intricate, starting from these little thin threads of people like us just kind of connecting, right? It's within that kind of a space where the scale free and the active inference things that Stephen's talking about offer the degrees of freedom, right? Naturally, and are equal to the complexity of that situation that is that on a sort of discovered sort of topology or landscape that is this digital future that has been unaddressed, as you said, Tiberius, right? Totally, everybody flat-footed pretty much, with a big race forward, and then all this stuff like, oh no, that's happening, damn, right? That's basically what's happening now. So I'll just mention briefly, I attended a thing last night with Shoshana Zuboff and Jim Balsillie at the Center for International Governance Innovation last night. And so check that out. I'll post a link in there, but it's relevant to sort of what you're talking about.
How was it? I'd love to hear about that. I love her.
It was very passionate. It was very encouraging in the passion and the facts and the stuff. And she had a bunch of her books laid out. And she just, I guess this book just came out, Surveillance Capitalism. So it was very good. Yeah, it was good.
Well, thank you very much. We can move on if to other topics if Lauren doesn't have an input here.
I guess
Yeah.
the
I just want to make
yeah.
a final remark on this before we move on, and saying that it's very interesting for us to have this type of conversation because, in my understanding, it has a direct relationship with reimagining wealth, right? In a sense that I don't think that we generate as a species, as a civilization, as societies, awareness about this scaling up perspective dynamics, Stefan, that you shared. I think that we are, as a species, evolving to generate all sorts of awareness around that in this interconnection, beginning with the interconnection between cities, uh, between countries, the intercontinental connections that we made, even with the telegraph in the 19th century with the cables, with the submarine cables, and then the submarine cables serve as an infrastructure for internet, for instance. For instance, people don't realize how what we call internet in terms of infrastructure depends on submarine cables. Like they are more relevant even than satellite communications or radio point to point. So there you go. So there's in this scaling up, there's a sense of what you understand as a reality, right, Stefan? Like what each person understands as a reality that he can grasp, or he and she can grasp, or it's beyond, or it's trans for each one. Like it's something that, wow, this is very utopic for me. Oh, this is very dystopic for me. This is way above my pay grade, right? So like, so there's this dynamics that each one of us has of grasping things, and it has a direct relationship with agency and scaling, as you put it, right? But in the greater scheme of things, for me, we are still in this very learning phase of understanding our capabilities as beings that are capable to do distributed cognition, like in different scalings, different setups, and different scaling dynamics, right? As a network, for instance, as a peer-to-peer network, for instance. That would be, to be a very interesting topic to talk about the OVN 2.0, right? Like how we embed, how we ingrain this complex doing perspectives, like scaling up, like like agencies in scaling up in the equation of an open value network that is not only economic, it's not only economical, or it has it can be we can understand that we generate all sorts of open value networks without being aware of them in daily basis, because we're not aware as a species. Maybe in the past, our ancestrals past or nomads, they were not aware, but they were embedded in this OVNs, in this open value networks. They were created between them in different scaling that each one of them has this type of locality, right? So yeah, I just want to make that remark before we move on.
Yeah. Can I bounce off that? Because one thing I was just thinking about there as you said that, like the distributed cognition is a good part of what becomes a different framing, right? It's like we're distributing, it is different. And actually I was just thinking about this partly because you talk about networks of networks, Tibi, but there's also, I think we should also think in terms of networks of teams, or networks of networks that are teams. Like, there's something quite different to being on this call with the same stable group of people that's kind of almost like there's a sort of team sense of purpose, rather than you can have some, like say you have a Zoom call with 45 people, right? That's also a network. You go, oh, that's a bigger network, that's a better network, but not necessarily at all. It could be that it's better to have a network of teams of 4 or 5 people that do what we're doing at times, or come in, you know, maybe you could have 2 or 3 types of groups, and then people that come in and out, and it's different. There's something about it, because there becomes a sense of knowing our purpose, right? And one thing about a team is they basically say that a team that's like a true team really doesn't really work after 8 people. Like you start to get into a small group then, and then you get into large groups and stuff. So then what does it mean to be an agent, and what's the identity, and what it means to be continually engaging with people in parts of Canada, Brazil, America, you know, South Africa. That starts to become a stable set of understandings. Now, is that maybe the type of thing which is what do you call it? Transnational? No, transnational. Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of continual. So me as a person, I'm building up an approximation of what it means to be talking. You know, I haven't really had a long ongoing conversation with Brazil. I meet Brazilians here, and I meet Brazilians in different places, but it's always, it stops and it ends. And we were trying to do something a few years ago with Alegre University in Brazil through the Dalai Lama School of Health, but then it never quite happens, right? But they do have a lot of there's a lot of connections with Brazil, and I spoke to someone else down there. But so Vinicius, it's great that, you know, I feel I've got this continuity, and I think, I don't know how that's hard to capture from when we talk about things from the outside, but it's true from within, and that might be a quality that changes things, right? Because if we could have the same call with a group of people who are all in our local town, right? And it wouldn't give you so many surprises. You're not going to have such radical differences, and assuming that's something you want, right? And in a transnational conversation, you might want that diversity. If I'm talking about something happened in a street, a favela in Brazil, then transnational is not, you know, we need to have the local people. There needs to be another space where it would be the local people, because that's their lived world, right? And we don't want to be speaking for them. So ironically, in the world of aid, this kind of conversation used to happen a lot about what should happen in someone else's world in Africa. That have all we could be development workers from the UN or whatever, sitting here, but not talking in the way we're talking, because they're talking more from a bureaucracy point of view, and maybe in charge of resources, and we're trying to create, and that's the bit I'm not sure what that is. So but to me, approaching it, if you're going to try and work out what transnational space is, then I'd like to know, how is it similar or different to what we're doing here? Because that's something that's concrete, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, you guys said something. I'm trying to synthesize it. Maybe this transnational space, we can find a parallel as it emerges. We can find a parallel with the creation of the nation state. So if you look back in history, the closest to our experience is the family, right? And then that family structure, relationships, the codification of these relationships in the family was scaled to the clan, let's say, and stretched to kingships, right? To monarchies that are very paternalistic, right? You have a fatherly figure at the head of a large group of people. But then there was a shift, there was a transition, which was not just scaling on the same principles, set of relations and logic, right? the nation state was a new frontier. So yeah, these are the same people that now are learning how to live together in a very different way. And the state was built on laws and values. So you move away from relationships that are codified in the context of family to something that is built more on abstractions. Okay, and that creates a new environment that could be stable enough for a bunch of people to be productive at a larger scale, right? So in a sense, there is a scaling up, but there is also a fundamental qualitative change. The set of relations changes, right? And then the state created its own identity, the national identity, and its own culture, and we're still fabricating these things, right? And to some extent, the nationalists, they still go back and use the family metaphor, okay, when they speak about the state. But this is just to appeal to our, I don't know, deep psychological, processes. But the state is not a family, right? So this transnational space that opens up, I could see it like a similar process. Like we're learning now how to live together at global scale, but it is yet another frontier because everything that holds the state together, laws and values, and the national identity, and the culture that we have crafted and unified, these break down. They don't apply anymore there. So you kind of have to reinvent everything. This is information, right? The problem is that, so today we have all these things living at the same time. So you have some countries where the tribe or the clan is still very powerful and still very influential within the state. You can say that the state is just a consensus of clans, right? You have all these countries in the Middle East, for example. And some people are trying to stretch the state paradigm to a larger scale. So Europe, you can see the same mechanisms. There is huge money invested in Europe for building a sort of a European identity, a European culture, define the European values, set up a new legal framework, okay, for a European citizen. So Europe becomes just a larger state, like a sort of a federation, right? And people that talk about world government, okay, and new world order and all that stuff, it's again stretching the same structures to a global proportion. But peer-to-peer, it's like the invention of the state, but there is this qualitative jump dealing with the global scale. You see what I'm saying? And everything else will stay there. I mean, the family is still there, the extended family is still there, the clan is still there. Regions where people share the same language and culture will be there. So in this discussion, this Wednesday was very nice because there was no contradiction in our approaches, in the sense that local governance is still relevant, and to a certain extent regional governance is very relevant. Maybe you can talk about bioregional governance because we have to share some natural resources that are interconnected. But then there is this other thing, you see. So I don't know if that helps. Talking about the jump from the family metaphor to the state metaphor, and now jumping to another metaphor. And this is what I call transnational, beyond the state. Like the nation was trans family, right? And this peer-to-peer is transnational in some sense.
Would be nice to be for us to better qualify this trans qualifier, because you have a movement that is called post-growth, for instance. Would you qualify post-growth as something transnational in this sense, for instance?
Yeah, you're making that noise. I didn't understand your question. There's like background noise.
It's not me, it's Stefan. What I'm saying is trying to better qualify what you're trying to share with us here in terms of transnational, right? Would you say that the post-growth movement is something that is related to a transnational perspective, or understanding, awareness of your reality, or something like that?
Yes, definitely. I mean, yeah. So this peer-to-peer movement that opens this new frontier, which is transnational, in my view, has created its own infrastructure. Like you were talking about cables under the sea for the global economy, right? Now we have the blockchain, and all sorts of other things as infrastructure for this transnational space. And it's creating its own economy that is based on different principles. So the notion of commons, the peer-to-peer economy, moving away from like a post-monetary world, a post-growth. Yeah. So I do think that this comes at that level where we realize, okay, so we reach the boundaries of the planet. Okay, we scale as much as the planet is, and now we realize that these are the planet is finite. Okay, and that's it. We're all in this ship, zooming through the space, right? So as this space opens, we become conscious about a lot of things, and we integrate that into our culture, into our economy, into our governance. So yes, but this transnational space, again, it has not been codified. Like the digital space at the beginning was just a chaotic environment.
Now I'm getting you better. I think that we're getting you better now. It has not been codified yet. It's being codified in different manners with different equations. Let's put it, different elements all over the planet, right? It's not one only thing. It's something that is an emerging, interactive process, dynamics, right?
Yeah, it's like embryogenesis. We cannot clearly see the body formed, and there is all sorts of things that are kind of popping up and becoming more refined and take shape and become more formalized. And at the same time, these things are connecting together to create something larger and coherent. And when Stefan talks about scales, I see scales as codified environments. So we know we're in a city, and I behave as an inhabitant of that city. And I know I'm a Canadian citizen, and I behave as a citizen in that particular context, right? So when I go to vote, okay, I'm fully aware I'm acting as a Canadian citizen, right? I'm acting within that space that is codified. So for us, but I also agree with Stefan that there is the agency and the experience. There is something that just permeates all that allows me to navigate. So I lost myself a little bit.
That's why I say, TB, that what you're sharing with us here, what you're qualifying as a transnational phenomenon, has a direct relationship with this concept that I've been researching and working and experimenting on, of complexity doing, right? And it has a direct relationship with different scalings that different people have at different times of understanding and having awareness around reality. So yeah, that's pretty much this a co-evolutionary process that we as a species are living, right? And in that sense, this is very cybernetic because we're integrating infrastructure with superstructure. We're integrating this submarine cables and now the smartphones as part of our in all the softwares and peopleware, like Bowens used to talk about, and we are becoming peopleware in this sense, and integrating infrastructure with superstructures in a very complex way that we in the past didn't do that. Really, we didn't do that. We weren't so we didn't have all this interconnectivity. We didn't have all the perception and awareness around complexity or complexities that we have nowadays. Yeah, I can totally agree with you in that sense.
Yeah.
Tim,
So
Tim was going to say.
okay.
I just want to interject on one thing, or that came to mind, Tiberius, when you were talking, and you said a phrase that was the transnational, or you're sort of reaching into sort of the unknown and saying, but there's this new thing, and you wanted to put words, or you wanted to throw it out there a little bit. I felt like you sort of characterized it a bit, but then you kind of also said, but there's some new dimension. I think the tricky part about that new thing is that it's not a thing, right? It's that process kind of perspective that needs to be elevated a great deal more, and a reflection of that might be in a nuanced distinction regarding the scale and the way that we just talked about Stephen's scale free capacities for active inference and such, and then you described it. So you said, well, I conceive of these scales as those they're codified, right? Well, they are in the example that Stephen, or that you gave about moving from spaces, right? Like, as you know. But what's really important, I think, that Stephen was trying to, or that's the opportunity in what Stephen was saying, is that what active inference is offering and what scale free means in the context when he's discussing it is the agility to move between the scales in a way that is efficacious in terms of like an organismic searching and exploit dynamics in order to sort of work within an economic energy model, so to speak, in a very abstract sense of causality and information, but a kind of an economy, right? So that across scales, some kind of degree of kind of emergence can occur. So it's more kind of about the connectivity and the agility across the scales as a capacity. And then that becomes a powerful tool to have fluidity in order to refactor or have unfreezing productivity and constructive movement, if you like, to deal with this, what you meant when you were, what the feeling was when you were saying, but there's this thing, you know what I mean? So, but the thing's not a thing. Right. And that's part of the sort of information and the whole network thing, right? Of course, right. But also it's deeper at those levels you talked about with this whole cultural thing and having to deal with it from
Yeah.
what does it mean, right? So I just want to emphasize those little distinctions. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think Tim makes, so you summed it up quite nicely there. And this is the conundrum, isn't it, of how to sort of reconcile and move between these. Because I think one thing that, like, I've been wrestling with this and trying to work out, what does it mean to be scale defined? So one thing, for instance, is a government can influence, maybe they can influence certain laws being passed, right? So suddenly their impact, their agency relates to laws being passed. And no other scale has that. Other scales have the scale of being able to elect the leader, which might then form the party, which makes the laws, right? So, you've got these kind of different things happening in their own sort of, I like to call them experiential ecosystem. And the way I've been thinking about this, if I stand up here, I've been trying to work out is to reconcile this. It's like if I'm at my scale, I'm here having my experience, and I'm interacting with stuff, I'm affording stuff. So wherever I am doing that. That's scale free to some extent. It's always me, it's never a robot doing that. The difference is when I start to think about working with laws or something, and I work in the House of Commons, if I did show up there with my identity, these laws, even though we think of it now as being, these laws are basically, they are kind of things that have been codified and they're put into our environment. And they're probably not put into the environment actually by the politicians, they're actually put into the parliament by the institutions, by the universities and the law departments and the London School of Economics and the Rotman School of Business and and then there's some sort of lobbying that goes on. The lobby used to be the cloisters of the monastery where they used to talk. That's why they call it lobbying. And this sort of, now this is what people do for the last 200-300 years, and that is that from the inside that's what looks like a thing, or from the outside looks like a thing, but it's actually our representation of people doing stuff together with artifacts. And I'm going to get this on next Thursday, because next Thursday I get my ceremony to be a citizen of Canada. So yay! So how does that change me from being a permanent resident? You know, that's kind of an interesting question that comes up, right? So I can vote now. I will be able to vote. I can get a passport. Main thing is I just don't have to worry about renewing my permanent resident card. And also, to be honest, I could commit more crime and they can't kick me out. I know it sounds funny. Well, they can, but I'd have to do something pretty bad to lose my passport, right? But it's, yeah.
I'm just thinking here, Stephen, as a data point in our conversation, I'm asking myself, I'm sort of taking a breath and reflecting on whether what you said makes any difference to me. So I think I still feel the same way I did about you yesterday as I do today, now that I know you're going to be a Canadian citizen, and probably the same as I feel about you next week after you're a Canadian citizen. So there's a data point on that. But congratulations, and that's great. So yeah, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, by the way, I became a while ago Portuguese citizens, and that didn't make no difference for me. Like I didn't felt differently, like really, because maybe because I'm not there, right? Like I'm not actually in Portugal, so I just feel like something related to the States, not something related, to my reality. So it's like just an avatar that I can eventually put on and a persona that, oh, now I'm Portuguese. No, I'm not Portuguese. And that's really interesting. But guys, let's move on, because I think that we have so much things to talk. And it has relationship with this type of conversation that we're having here. That is the proposal of us doing some exploration in Gathertown, where Stefan has his infusion lab, right? And opening space for us to invite people to go there, even educate ourselves how to be in Gathertown. And yeah, it has a direct relationship with what you, Stefan, talked with Flouting weeks ago, to do this type of exploration this year. And I would like to know if you guys had the opportunity to evolve a little bit, so I'm curious, because we want to put in practice, right? Like we're not just talking about it. Let's put it in practice. So
we've got a room ready to go that we can customize. But we haven't done a lot with it since. But I have been bringing people into that space to have a look. And actually, if we've got a logo, I don't know if you want it, if you've got an RWI logo or a sensorical logo. Use a sensorical logo, I suppose.
There's a lot of noise on my side. I don't know who's feeling that.
I don't know. It's not.
I don't know.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. I mean, I've got the screen here actually. I've got my this was the main this one here. I've got it open. I turned off the so yeah, this is the one that allows us to do sort of meetings, and then we could go from here into a little breakout. I kind of like this because I can put, if you see on the right, actually, that's the pivot projects, which it might be worth connecting with them actually. But, that was during COVID. They were doing a lot of stuff about regeneration. But this space could be a nice space. We were working and using these notes around the space, and it could be, and then working on that with how that could relate to what Lauren was talking about, but we didn't really get into the ins and outs of how to facilitate it. It was more how useful it was for Lauren to frame her questions, and I think she was doing other work. There's kind of a couple of things, right? There's the content that gets put in here, and that's where we wanted to start in a way. I wanted to be looking at something that was actually useful to someone rather than just an idea of starting from an imaginary thing. So it might be that we have a space and we say, okay, in terms of what Lauren was doing and the types of interactions there, or maybe the way to sort of start to play with getting her ideas together, what might that be like? And then we can duplicate this room and have one which is maybe set up for talking about something else slightly, right? And we might arrange it, or it might be a room which is very, for what would you like to have for a small group or a large group or whatever. So there's the question of how groups actually get hosted. You know, what's the architecture like in there? So Lauren, I don't know if you had any more. You did actually build on, and that I wasn't there for that, but you did build on some of the content side, didn't you?
Well, I just used what we had built to talk about something that I wanted to talk about, but it was helpful just having that option of, it sort of opens, it gives you permission, I think, to talk about something that's interesting you that normally you wouldn't bring up with the group. So in our testing of it, it worked for me. I'm not sure if anyone else enjoyed the conversation, but I sure, it was satisfying for me.
Okay, that's good. Do you think it was good to have these notes? I mean, we kind of improvised a bit, chucking notes around the edge of the room. I mean, I hadn't done that before actually, so that was the first time I tried that. But we kind of we took your, basically, to give you a heads up, as you were saying your questions, but you've been thinking about those questions more since then, haven't you?
Yeah, I think so.
These notes came up, and I just put them on. You see the screen here, and then you could like think about it, and then we move them around. But did you go back into this actual space to have a little look at them afterwards? Did you visit it on your own?
I didn't. I don't have the link.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, I'll give you the link just to let you know that other people might be in and out of this space because it's not. But like, if this room here, it could be duplicated. This room, we could actually have it so that we put the logo of, say, RWI in here, and could have a couple of these down the corridor, right? And it could be that we can have that we have things on the wall that we can engage. I like this idea of having notes around the space. I actually changed a couple of things in my space based on I did a few things after our conversation. So over here on the right, it's a bit noisy, but I actually put, I started to think about, okay, well, if someone was doing an infusion lab, I started off with text saying, where does the practitioner enter from? I.e., what's their, you could say, what's their scale? What's their current models of thought? You know, and then on that, and Okay. And then I could pop up. So I just use those same things that you did. I just put 4 boards here. Can the prior practitioner model undergo defusing? I.e., if someone's already got a mental model, can we break that down or work out what it is? So this is partly thinking about what I did with Tibby when they were trying to, like, what is it that's already there and how can that be made simpler? What kind of practices could be configured if there's practices involved? And then what's it like for the agent within those different systems? And then is there something at the moment where multi-stakeholder interactions are addressed, or is it literally, as is often the case in my estimation, it's just seen as intractable and a black box because you just can't go there because you can only process things that everyone is on the same page about, right? But if people are on different pages, currently it's quite hard, but if you're maybe working from a more basic perspective, so, you know, so this is, and that was something for the Infusion Lab, and then I don't know if this was, and then I created somewhere here for Infusion Space then so people to go and have a sit and a chat and just a quiet zone, which I think I kind of had when you were doing it, didn't I? Did I have this room when you were there? I can't remember if I showed you a room. No, I've added this in.
No, I don't think so. I don't remember that.
Yeah, so I've added this in to make it a little bit more, so people could come here, because I think that other room is obviously got loads and loads of stuff in it, which I'm trying to, if I want to move people into groups, but if I just want someone to not be about me and just about them, this seems like a peaceful Zen-like space, and you can just say, okay, what would you like to have happen? And actually, it was really useful for me doing that, Lauren, because I actually started to create my own 3 questions, which I'm exploring to send to people. And I think I talked to Tim about this, is basically starting from the point of view of where's the other person at, rather than trying to explain the method. I mean, your thing was part of that, right? So rather than trying to explain, oh, you're going into Gathertown, it's like, Lauren, what would you like to explore? Let's see. And then I didn't tell you, I hadn't even thought that we were going to use notes around the room, right? But that was me having to work out with the affordances what could, you know, it was about your stuff and trying to get as much as we could to help it, right? And that should be same with other people, right? Within reason. They don't really need to know too much more than that. The question is, how do you find out where they're at? Sometimes it might be they're at the place we tell them. So if they're going to be talking about women who've had challenges and, you know, abusive environments, then they're sort of coming into your kind of page, if that makes sense, right? Because that's what you're, one of the things you're doing, so that's great. But there could be other things that mix in with that, right? Maybe you're dealing with men as well as women. It's like they're never going to be quite on that page. Okay, so in that case, how could there be a space which holds that intractability rather than everyone? I think that's the problem we've got at the moment. Everyone has to get on the same page, and sometimes maybe they can't, and maybe that's okay. You know, so they've got, you know, why does everyone have to get on the same page? Because we need it, because the way we have to make things tractable is basically define an ontology. Whereas if we can go to something more process-based, it does free that up. Anyway, so, and actually there was a couple of, while I'm at it, I might as well, so this can be a resource here, and those rooms at the top, we can break out into them. So it could be if you wanted to have a meeting or something with someone. I've sort of done that on the other side here a little bit. Let me just get him out. On the other side, I created this. I've got something a bit weird going on with the way it does its thing. On this other side here, I've got another room which is the same sort of thing. But then afterwards I created this thing so you can go through one of the doorways. So basically this is an area up here which, you know, it gives 2 doorways, so you could have a couple of different options where people go. So you could be, for instance, you could have a one-on-one session on the blue door and the group goes. So say you've got someone who, everything's going well, you can move forward, but in this group there's one person that's really triggered, right? Say, okay, go through the blue door and you can have a chat with someone who maybe is a little bit got counselling skills or something, and you don't even have to worry about being in the same virtual room, and we can all carry on here, and we can come up and do the map of meaning here, which is what we're looking at. So it's another version of that map of meaning. And also I put a little helicopter in so we can go over and sit by the lake if we want. I don't think I had the lake there when you were doing it, did I? Or...
No, I haven't. Oh, I like the lake.
Yeah, so you can sit, and we've got a little picnic there. And I thought this is quite nice. This is actually out of Winnie the Pooh, background from Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, that's right.
So Layla's trying to watch a video, and I'm like stopping the video to get a screen grab, right? And then I added a few things. So then we've got a little whiteboard on here, so you can do something. So you could have a meeting in the middle of the lake. There is actually a tiger underneath those trees, but I hid that. I don't want to get any copyright issues. So yeah. So, but you know, it gives a different kind of experience. So. But there's something quite nice about being next to water, right? So you could just sit here, have a chill, just feels a bit peaceful, right? And it could be that this is where people go for a relax, and or maybe because this is the thing, you're in this catch-22. Sometimes people really want action. Some people just don't want action; they just want to chill, right? But they could go in here and unpack things and talk about it. And I don't think, did I put anything? No, I haven't put anything up here. So we can have a look at all these different types of affordances, but you know, yours is a real life scenario. So by doing what we did, it pushed me to try and add some more stuff to the space, right? So that was useful because it was something real, right? And down at the bottom here, I do actually have an exit. I don't know if this is working at the moment. Let me just check. This actually takes me to another space. Oh yeah, which is, this is actually the local ice rink. That's Layla at the local ice rink. And if I in this space here, if I respawn, that takes us to the bar. But the nice thing with this space is it's got here, which is actually a real building in downtown Toronto from the 1800s. And you can go inside it and have a meeting on the roof and talk to people.
Oh wow!
So this was done with an artist, so an illustrator. So you know, it could be kind of fun to explore something here where we actually imagine, do we like to go to Toronto? And that transnational thing comes in, because one of the things that can be nice with that is we can imagine our journey to this space, but we could also make a space that's meaningful to your local area, Lauren. And then we could all imagine what would it take us to all go there. So it's like we're actually grounding ourselves on planet Earth, and then grounding ourselves on how to get to where you are, or in this case. So if I was looking south, I'd be looking to you, Lauren, in the US, because you're sort of down there. This is looking at the Great Lake Ontario at the moment. That's south, that's north.
Actually, I'm in Paris.
Oh, you're in Paris? Okay, well, I'm facing you now then. You'll be looking, I'm looking, not exactly, because this character, but you're looking now. Okay, I'm looking down at Brazil now then. I'm looking down at you, Vinicius. Looking west towards Paris and Montreal, or Montreal's a little bit northwest. And yeah, so it can be kind of fun, right?
East, maybe? East, or no? I don't know.
Oh yeah, and where are you, Tim? You're sort of north. Well, Montreal's kind of this. Yeah, this is facing pretty much straight up Yonge Street, so that's north. So yeah, so that's pretty much east, yeah. And then you got north. I don't know. Montreal's a funny one, isn't it? Because is it pretty much east of Toronto? It's not. It's a little bit north, isn't it? Anyway. So I'd love to be able to, like, this is the thing, I'm trying to I've not actually hosted in here. This is why I'd really appreciate your input, Lauren, because I think you'll be good at thinking about how to host in here. Because I think, well, you're good at that particularly, or generally, in fairness, generally women are better at that than men anyway, in terms of how to think about things. And this is Union Station, this is the downtown railway station. So here you can sort of, you can have welcome to our presentations for today. So say we have a conference in here, we could go in and be welcomed by the doorman, and then we could go in and do a workshop in this space. And it could be kind of funny. The bus is going the wrong way, buddy. Okay, don't get on the bus. So yeah, we can. And this anyway. I won't show you everything because this is something we could do in an interactive session, but that would be something we could maybe host, because it makes more sense, I think, to go together when it's been hosted maybe over a day or two. You know, let's say we have a conference event where we maybe host 3 or 4 presentations and a workshop, some of which could be through Zoom, and then from that we get things. And yeah, I've got a few little goodies in here. Like there's a little. Actually, forgot how to. Yeah. There we go. I got a Van Gogh version of the building. I did that through one of those image generators. It's kind of fun. So I mean, that's actually an old version of the AI now. So it's the same room, but it's gone trippy. Yeah, so I mean, I haven't gone back to these because I created a lot of stuff, and then it all got a little bit. Life got a little bit in the way. Let's put it like that. But if you're okay, let me return back, and I'll stop sharing. But the key thing is that there's options here for different types of spaces. But for me, I think the most practical space, like this is a really cool one here, where you can sit. I got this, and it's like 3 levels. So you can have a level here, and then you can be sort of go and sit, have a chat on the first floor, and then you can go up to the bedroom and have a chat here and sit on the bed, have a look out the window. And
oh my gosh,
it's kind of fun. And the fun bit is if you go to the roof and you click on that here, you end up in the water. Yeah. And then you can come out again. So this is kind of like a bit frivolous, right? But it could be nice for an after party or something. So, you know, say we did an event where we have 2 or 3 presentations, a workshop and something over the course of a couple of days. It could be something that we host people in, you know, and maybe there's a day which is more about the sort of thing Lauren's talking about, maybe.
I all of a sudden wanted to go make a cup of tea.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, let's go make a cup of tea, guys. This one, you have to find your... Yeah.
Stefan,
Yeah.
Stefan, I have a question for you, my friend. Do you use this virtual very 80 games? Like this seems like a game from the 80s or the 90s of last century. Do you use a lot this space daily? Do you use it as a workspace?
They do,
I'm curious.
yeah, people do, yeah. Well,
And do you feel that you immersed on it, or is just a template that you're just you know, navigating around?
Well, this is the thing that's interesting, actually. It feels more real because you're not immersed in it. And the reason is that the thing that makes it feel real, and you can't see this, is as I go, you see as I'm walking on where my character's walking, right, backwards and forwards, the key thing is when I get here, I bump into that table. So if I just walked around the room, it wouldn't, as I bump into the table, that table starts to feel, as I press the key and I can't go through it, it starts to feel solid to me. It's this idea of affordances. So in many ways, it's nice because it doesn't try and immerse you in. It's like something where it's a canvas, but what you can do with this is you can start to create within these spaces a kind of a community, a kind of a social space. So there can be a social space. So for instance here, this may be a social space, but it doesn't really happen because there's only my character in there. So say all of us were in here and we happen to hang out in here, there might be a sort of a feel for what it's like for this group, this transnational group, to hang out here, right? And then if we were to go and do the map of meaning space, that's not really a hangout space. That's more of a teleological space. It's a space where we're going in there to do an activity. Does that make sense? So it becomes a bit more like a presentation space or something. So yeah, so these things can kind of link up. Like this one, I'm back outside. So it could be you have a little, you know, arrangement of different places. And this is what I've been playing with, but I want to sort of refine it here. So here I'm on the roof, and I can, you know, here I've got a Google Doc that I can look through, right? So we can make it a workspace that, again, it needs a purpose, right? So it's like, this is like something I did on AI, and like, you can sort of see, that was one of my trippy ones. And then here's another place. So these are sort of places that you can bring in, and
yeah, this is places that you is a kind of a world building, or this is pre-existing. This is a pre-existing place.
This is one that I built. The nice thing about Gather is all you need to do is bring in a background image. You have to kind of work it out. So this is me bringing this in. This is Layla ice skating. I got a feeling the room. I can't remember how to get out of here now. There's a shortcut in here somewhere, which I can't remember where I left it. But yeah, so it could be nice. So now you're getting a sense of the local ice rink we got here. The nice thing in Canada is these are all free. So we can just go down the road, 5 minutes walk, and we can go ice skating, which is quite nice. So you know, this is using their space. This is their kind of design. It's been sort of made and adapted, but this is using their kind of pre-built assets.
And Stefan, you only have this bird's eye view of interacting, like you're looking
down.
You're looking from the heights.
Yeah. It's the way that you tend to do it on this particular platform. You can change it. Like we were speaking to an organization called Space Makers in Czech Republic. So they actually did the World Cup event for all the journalists for the World Cup in here, and they use 3D modeling, and they can actually render like Olympic stadiums and stuff like that, and people's office spaces, and makes it more natural. So you know, this took a long time. This space here with this Gooderham building, this is actually a real building in Toronto, right? But it was quite hard because the thing that's a bit unusual with this is I've got it so you can actually walk inside it. You see the character here, he actually goes behind. There's actually a foreground and background. So he's walking up inside, which is kind of nice. And then you get pop up on the roof. And you see how he's behind the roof. So that's one nice thing about Gathertown. It does that. And it feels, you know, it feels quite nice. If you're all there trying to walk around, you get like the bumping around and making it a bit difficult. Because it's not really about being immersed in Gathertown. I don't want us to be in Gathertown. I want us to be in our community in relation to that room. Does that make sense? That's the trouble when you're in a game. You can't get that.
Yeah, but that was the original intention of who created Gathertown. Do you know about that? Because it doesn't feel like it was a regional intention. It feels like more something that people discovered with time using it. Like no, it's not about the immersive. It's not about the immersive experience. It's more like the scaling up. Now, of course, people didn't talk about that. I'm putting in your words. It's more like about the scaling up experience that you have here. And yeah, that's very nice. So guys, what are you suggesting? What are you suggesting for us to next step, Stefan, for us to start to do something there? You're going to, let's say, open a space for RWI for us to invite people to be there, but before that, let's be more educated about how to interact in this space with you. How do you see the next steps this way?
I think for now, what we can do, I mean, the thing is, if we do it during an RWI, I suppose it's being broadcast, so I have to be a bit mindful that we're recording this, right? But I was kind of thinking have a space like this and put the logo on it, and we sort of meet in and around here and do like different meeting rooms, different breakout rooms, and just use this as a space for doing a lot of the meeting up, you know. And then we can, like, we've got to work out how we broadcast it, because it can still be better to record via Zoom what's happening if you want to record it, and we can do that through a screen share or even a video of someone's screen or something. But just to think about how that's done, because my account doesn't, there is a recording ability on GatherTown, but I don't have that license, and it only records the local conversations anyway, right? So if you'd like, we could use some of this and build on what Lauren's saying, and there's 2 or 3 threads.
Could we
right?
build a bonfire in a forest and be like something that we're just sitting around the bonfire having conversations?
Oh, if you'd like that, we actually have got.
That
what you
sounds
guys
way
think,
better. That
TB?
does sound good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. Well, I've got something like that. Let me just check if I can find it.
Well, this we're gonna do
Have
this at like a future session or something too. You don't have to. Nobody.
Yeah, let me
nobody
do that at a future
expected you to
session.
have
Okay,
that.
let me get that set up. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to close that. I've got something. So that's actually works out well. It's actually good because there's a lot of things I was building for Complexity Weekend, right? And I had a whole lot of things that I've been building for Complexity Weekend that never really got fully utilized, right? Or I shared it, but it didn't get. So I can. It's some stuff's ready to go, but that's something that might be a good thing to prepare in advance. Maybe we can do a session before and have it ready to go.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah, Stefan, I was thinking, is Lauren still here with us? I was thinking about that in different tables, having different conversations and things like that. We could build up RWI world space, let's put it with time, like in GatherTown, where you have the bonfire, where you have the cave, that it's very dark, so we can have liminal conversations there. So where we have natural, you have the river, where you can, where you can sit on the river, you can feel the river, not feel, but you feel that you're in that river, you know, spot to have the conversations. We can have conversations between the boundaries between nature and city, like you know, an interstitial space between here's nature, here's the city. So we're having the conversations in this in-between space, nature and city. So my desire to be in GatherTown is not to GatherTown, the GatherTown is to hack GatherTown and do it in different manners. What you guys think about that, Tim, TB, Lauren?
Yeah, I'm up for experimentation.
Yeah, we can have even a lab TB, and there, Sensorica lab there, of course. We can have a lab there, and we can interconnect this experience with Superfluous Man, speculative fiction storytelling. What you guys think? You see, like if people want to gather around something that Tony is doing, or Luna, that is the dog that is exploring, we can do that in this type of spaces and gather.
Yeah. I would like to explore these spaces which are different than you know, like the documents and Miro, for sure. Yeah, let's set it up. I don't know. Should we have to create a new GatherTown or use the same? That
No, we start small, like within the boundaries of Infusion Lab, the infusion space. We maybe the first thing that we're going to do is create a bonfire in the outskirts of the building. I don't know. This is up to Stefan and with the license that he has and the possibilities that we can explore in this sense. But what I'm saying that we can connect all sorts of things in this exploration, CTV. And, and we're going to use Lauren's reference of the tables, of the dancing around the tables with different thematics to explore, to populate Gather Town with these spaces, you know, the dark cave with the liminal space, the bonfire, the limits between nature and city. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And having a relationship with Superfluous Man, wow, this makes it even more interesting. I don't know if Tim agrees with me or even Lauren, but yeah, I feel that we're up to something here. Lauren?
It sounds good. Sorry, it keeps muting me.
Me? No, I'm not muting you.
No, it keeps me. No. It just I keep getting muted. Not you. No, you're not doing it. It just does it automatically. So yeah, sounds good.
So
I like the idea. I think it's good idea.
Would you like to? Would you guys, you, Lauren and Stefan, would you guys like to work in the first prototype? Let's put it this way, for us just to start to explore together. Go there, open an account. You see, meet there, sync there, and have the conversations. Because if we only speculate or only in the speculation dimension here, yeah, that's going to be nice, but yeah, we have to actually put our hands on our hands, right? So
the rooms are pretty much, I've got rooms that I've built. I mean, basically it won't be that hard. We can just go, the only thing is just setting it up. I mean, the main thing you find with it is the way that it feels, we'll find by being there. But the key thing is you can only tell once you've got a group, like what it would be for like a group of 6 people. Will have a certain dynamic, right? Whereas say you're in an event with 60 people, you might feel that you need to run away from the crowd, So we'll just have to suck it and see type of thing. But I've got a cave I've already developed. I mean, some of these spaces, I mean, that space with the building, that was 3 months work with an illustrator. That was a lot of work because we did that in Illustrator and had to rebuild it, build it. But we had some funding for that, so but we can do it. Yeah, let's do it. I mean, we can just go into the age and dramatic change space that's there, go up, and then I can customize 3 or 4 spaces up to the north, and then that way, that's sort of ready to go, right? And the nice thing is I've got a non-profit account with Gather. That's what's making it more cost effective, and it's free as long as it's less than 15 people in terms of people using it. It gets more expensive.
Stefan, the first cyberspaces that got around in the 80s and the 90s, they were pretty much like that, and even with less pixels. And it was already a sensation for us to understand what is the cyberspace related to the actual reality that we live in. And it was huge discussion, even between the cypherpunk, what became called as a cypherpunk movement. So that's a very good thing for us to do, because we're talking about cyberspace, but what is cyberspace, right? Is it only virtual reality? Is it augmented reality? Is it all of the above? Is it not? Is it some scaling up or scaling down dynamics that we can do with the ultimate reality that we live in? So yeah, there's so much there things that we can explore with this RWI lenses that we have here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Let's do it. Let's do it. I think there's a lot of stuff without getting into the nitty gritty that we can. Let's just do it, and I think try it out and bring in your perspective on what works for this group, and that's what matters, right? What's the personality that's here. And I'm going to dash now. Actually, I have to run because I've got something that's just come through that I have to attend to. So I'm going to really have to jump off the call, but this has been a really good call. So we'll speak soon. Take care.
All right, bye. Yeah, I was just going to say, keeping in mind, right, it's kind of like a learning, like you said, like complexity learning by doing. So it's kind of multiple levels. There you go, like multiple scales that we'd be trying this out, right? Not just because there's what Stephen I think was just alluding to. There's a lot we can learn and explore about the actual experience of trying it out and or how it could be useful, like you were saying, right? So, have a conversation there, but also part of the conversation is about how to have conversations there, or what that adds, or what's different, and what ideas Stephen's bringing to that whole modality, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
It's like
guys,
crawl, walk, run, right? It's simple. Because I mean, I kind of look at, and I don't know if you use the word cyberspace or whatever, or virtual reality or something, right? And so we picture the 3D immersive metaverse, augmented reality. We know about all these technologies, but this is almost because of its elemental kind of aspect. Maybe it's a starting point that you can get a grip on a little bit to talk about what it means to be in a space, or to feel like there's a space in a digital realm. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, Tim, and it seems like a child play, right? Like something that relates to our infancies. It doesn't. It's serious, but it's not. It's not. It not seems to be a serious thing, but at the same time, it is. But we're just playing around, like ludically speaking, just playing around with this type of virtual reality. That, as I said, was the first one that emerged in the 80s and the 90s when we were talking about cyberspace. So, yeah, I think that it's a very powerful way for us to have really interesting critical conversations about the things that we're living, and having this childish framework, like a gameplay for children, right? And because we are children too, right? So yeah, it would be very interesting exploration for us to do. So guys, we're wrapping up here. Besides saying bye-bye, anything else you like to add, TV, Tim, Lonnie?
No, that's.
I just wanted to say I reread this book. Some of you have probably read it. It's called The Artist's Way. And it's basically a book for artists, and the premise of the book is that there are a couple things that you can do that almost guarantee that you that magic will happen, that you can find personal emergence, which I found very interesting, and that promote group emergence as well. And so the first thing that she said was to do morning pages, which is regular journaling, which seems to just be written on everyone's list of the good things to do, whether they're scientists or like new age people or whatever. It just seems like a really good thing. And then her second suggestion is artist dates, where you spend time each week. You set aside a period of time where you just do creative stuff. And she says that this like gives you a greater connection to the source. I mean, she says like God, but whatever that means to you. And she said that these two things, if you do them regularly, whether you believe in them or not, they actually they start creating emergence in your life. And I just thought that was like really, really interesting. And yeah, so I'm starting a program in my life where I'm going to do those things. And that's actually like what she was saying was backed up by people like, psychologist Adam Grant, who said that the difference between geniuses who produce like amazing works and non-geniuses are that the geniuses just do more bullshit. Like they just produce more stuff. And because you don't know what is actually going to be great when you're producing it, just that producing more stuff just increases your chances of something catching on. So just thought I'd say that.
Oh.
Vinicius, you're muted.
Yeah, wow, that was a great great thing for us to chew on. Thanks for that, Loading. And yeah, interesting. What's the name of the book you said?
It's called The Artist's Way.
The Artist's Way. Yeah, could you put the link for me after? Doesn't need to be here.
Oh yeah.
I want you to take a look. Yeah. And TB, so feel free, man, to make your final remarks. Wrap up.
No, it's fine. I was just saying that, yeah, let's experiment with some other digital environments. Yeah, I really like that.
Oh, sorry, Tim.
I also want to see how we can use like Stigmergy, how we can define some pheromones and see if we could put in place some Stigmergy, collaboration using that space.
Yeah,
is that space
great.
more supportive of Stigmergy than a Google Doc?
Great thing that you just said there. You see, if Metagov, TB, and Tim was there or allowing that type of Gathertown environment, we could do that. Remember the exploration of having some Stigmergy, leaving some traces of Stigmergy all over.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that would function. That would really work on Gathertown, but
yeah,
it doesn't work on Slack, right?
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
I just wanted to sort of say just to Lauren's raising of that book and just I had a friend who's an artist, and just chatting with him, I just remember the first little light bulb that went off chatting with him, and I think it's in some of these sort of books is what's really powerful, I think, from an artist's perspective, or what they tell them to do is focus on the process, and that kind of strikes me as interesting correlation with the earlier conversation, right? Because it's a powerful way to approach art making or creativity is they focus on the process and not the outcome. And there's a lot of reasons why they suggest that. And I don't know, Lauren, I'm sure they must talk about that in the book, but it's just kind of, I don't know if the right word's irony or coincidental or whatever. It's with the earlier talk about, concreteness versus fluidity in process, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Tim. Okay, TB. Okay, Lauren, my friends, my very good friends. This is more. We just ended up. See you guys around. See you next week and let's talk.
Right on.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.